What miracle were they looking for? They saw dangerous dimensions of God. But at the slightest opportunity, they bowed to Baal. They committed adultery with Ashtaroth. You will find out that another thing that describes your posture as a believer is that the believer is a watchman. He's a watchman. He is part of God's infrastructure upon the face of the earth to be able to discern times and seasons, bear responsibility, to see that the reality of God and the desires of his kingdom find expression in the earth. He's a watchman. He watches over the souls of men. He watches over the dynamics that happens in territories. He is God's weapon for discernment, for interpretation, and for expression in the visible realm. If you go further, you will find out that the Christian is also described, or the believer, as a pilgrim. A pilgrim. So he lives in the consciousness that this world is temporary. One of the lies that have been sold to the modern day believer is that there is so much so important about this realm, and you have to do everything to be comfortable here. But I have studied the lives of men that lived before us, and I have found out that one of the things that made them so loyal, so devoted to God, was their understanding that this realm is fleeting, is temporary. Our obsession with permanent residency is what has corrupted even our doctrine. That thing called the prosperity gospel, the reason it has been stretched and has bred thieves and lascivious and over self-conscious believers is because of this obsession with wanting to remain here forever. To be as comfortable as possible in a place that is rotting. The average believer, when you look at his life and look at his desires and look at his passions, his pursuits revolve around things that are driven by a fallen world. He doesn't have desire and passion and burden for the things that are eternal. Because we have not reminded ourselves enough that one of the postures of the believer is that he's a what? A pilgrim. He's in transition. In fact, if you teach that thing accurately, the Christian will realize that he has not started living until he has died. It is when you die, and I'm not talking about death to self and death to the flesh. It is when you die, the physical death, termination of life, that life actually begins for the Christian. Living and life for the believer, his deepest desire is living and life in eternity. And fortunately, you will hear Paul say, we are groaning in this tent. We are groaning. Because we understand that to be absent from the body is to be what? Present with the Lord. He understood that everything in this realm is undergoing decay. It's dying. Let's look at a scripture. Just stay with me tonight. I will just follow the leading of the Spirit. Romans chapter 8. I think that is verse 19. Romans 8, 19. You know, many of us, when we see this scripture, the way we read this scripture is that the whole world, unbelievers, are standing waiting for us to manifest. And by manifestation, what the preacher means is that you come with your Mercedes GLK. By manifestation, what the preacher means is that you get a job in Shell. By manifestation, what he means is that among all your mates, you are the first to marry. So that you can say, I can't be now. That is what he means by manifestation, or the revealing of the sons of God. But you see, that's not what this scripture is talking about. The revealing of the sons of God he's speaking about here is when we have died in this realm. And then we are now manifest in glory as the sons of God. And then you may ask me, how did you come about that? Go to the next verse, 20. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it how? In hope. What is he speaking about here? What happened in Genesis chapter 3? How many of us have read Genesis chapter 3? It's the chapter that discusses or describes the fall of man. When you go and read Genesis chapter 3 and see the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, you will find out that God cursed the serpent, God cursed the ground, but God never cursed man. Are you here? In that Genesis chapter 3, there is no curse upon man. What we call theologically the Adamic curse is what that place is speaking about. The Adamic curse is not a curse that was released on Adam. It's a curse that was released on creation because of Adam's fall. Are you here? Remember that when man sinned, what did God say to Adam? He said to Eve, he said, your desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you. I don't have time to deal with that. But that thing in Genesis chapter 3 is the same reason why Paul says that a woman should not establish doctrine in church. I'll deal with that another day. Are we together? He now goes further to say unto her that in pain will she do child delivery. But the woman herself was not cursed. Man himself too was not cursed. The Bible now says that when it came to man, God said, because of you, cursed is what? The ground. He says that even when you labor and plant seed, what will come from the ground will be briar and thistles. So what Paul was saying here is that all of creation has been subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. The hope here is when the sons of God are now revealed, also creation will be delivered from the curse. Are you here? Sorry to burst your bubble. I know you need a car, but this scripture is not the right scripture to tell you that you are going to manifest next week. This scripture is trying to tell you that you are a pilgrim. And everything that surrounds man in this realm, as beautiful as it looks, is rotting, is dying. Because the redemptive work of God upon the cross was for man, not for creation. Are you here? The way your face is, you are making me afraid. Oh my God. I know you are offended, but please, it's Bible. It's Bible. The redemptive work of Jesus on the cross was for who? Man. Man has been redeemed, but creation has not. The redemption of creation is tied to the revelation of the sons of God. So you hear scripture say that we do not yet know what we shall be. But when he comes, we'll what? Be like him. That's the revelation of the sons of God. We will be like him. And at that revelation, creation will now be redeemed. That's what the Bible speaks about when he says he will bring a new heaven and a what? New earth. And don't believe me, go to the next verse. Go to 21. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from what? The bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of who? Children of God. Give me NLT. Give me NLT. Give me NLT. 21 NLT. The creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in what? From what? Death. And what? So you see, when you are strolling past the trees in your compound and you look at the mango and say, mango, they sweet. That mango is suffering what? Death and decay. What will original mango taste like? You know you can't do without roasted corn. Meruvaya. Roasted corn has the capacity to destroy your consecration. Your 40 days commitment to God can be broken by the smell of beans. But you see, that beans is suffering what? Decay. So it means that when we appear in heaven, creation will be delivered into the glorious liberty, and their true ordination will now be manifest. So this thing is not about you getting a visa to go to America. This is to remind you that you are a what? Pilgrim. And in this realm, your designation is that you are a temporary resident. And this is why accurate teachers of the Bible, one of them in Paul, the Apostle Paul, teaches Timothy that those who have subjected themselves to the pursuit of wealth, the reality they entered into was that they pierced themselves with what? Many sorrows. In heaven, the currency in heaven is not naira and kobo, it's not dollars, it's not euros, it's not pounds. The currency in heaven is love, devotion, and loyalty. Love, devotion, and loyalty. And if you have not learned how to live in those realities here, you are not qualified for eternity. Everything we are doing in the visible realm is a dress rehearsal for living. We have not started, I know it's hard, but you see, we have not started living. Life has not even begun. Life and living will begin when we die. And if you have not used this season adequately to prepare yourself for living, it is you that disqualifies yourself, not God. Not God. So part of what spiritual maturity does for you is it makes these realities make sense to you. Make sense. Because your devotion to God, for instance, I have found by experience and by studying my own life, studying the life of my father, for instance, studying the life of people that I have read about, I have found, dear brother, that your devotion is only as strong as your knowledge and understanding of who God is. Your love for God is only as rich, deep, and sweet as your knowledge and understanding of who God is. Your loyalty to God will be total the day that you enter into accurate knowledge and understanding of who God is. If you find a Christian that is not totally loyal to God, the problem might not necessarily be teaching. The problem might be that they don't know and understand who God is. So you will find that this deliberate attempt by Satan to mischaracterize and misrepresent God, what it has done is that he has created people who are not loyal, who are not devoted, who don't genuinely love God, and has raised people who have made themselves idols. I've listened to some teachers teach new creation realities, and all I am hearing them say is replace God with yourself. You are God. So the worship that is supposed to be accorded to God, give to yourself. God is just something or someone that you use to satisfy your carnal appetites and desires. The problem is we no longer remember that we are what? Pilgrims.